Okay, so simple interest is earnings that are paid or owed on a fixed amount of money or principal. So basically, we want to think of it as extra money, whether you're owing this extra money or you're earning this extra money. So if you take out a loan at the bank for $10,000, you want to buy a car, a used car, and they're going to let you borrow the money, but they expect you to pay it back. And they're going to require that you pay it back according to interest that's going to accrue, some certain amount of interest. And so when you go back to pay your car back, depending on how long it takes you and what percent your rate is, you're going to be paying more than $10,000 back to the bank because of interest. On the flip side of that, if you deposit a big chunk of money into the bank, you start a savings account, you invest in a company, something like that, and there is a percentage of interest that your money is going to earn. And so however long it sits in the bank, that's how long it's accruing interest. So if you start out with $500 and you take it out 5 years later, at the end of those 5 years, depending on your percent, you're going to end up with more money. Okay, so it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. To calculate simple interest, we use the formula I equals PRT, and that PRT is being multiplied by each other. And we're going to plug in the numbers that we get in our word problems into our formula. So just to break this down, I is the interest earned. So that's our extra money, interest earned or owed. P is representing the principal amount or the amount invested, basically your beginning balance. So it could be a deposit, it could be a loan, some chunk of money that you're starting with. R is the interest rate expressed as a decimal. So in the formula, we want to put it as a decimal, but they're always going to give it to you as a percent. So just remember, if you're going to turn a percent into a decimal, you have to move your decimal 2 places to the left. Think of that Dr. Pepper. So percent to decimal, we want to work this way, so we would move it 2 spaces to the left. And then time is the time invested, however long you're letting that money sit there or waiting to pay back in years though. So if they give you a time in months, we would take that months, however long it is, and divide it by 12. And that would be what you use in your formula for T. So on example 1, calculate the interest earned after 5 years. So that's my time. On a $2,000 deposit, that's my principal, that earns 5.5% simple annual interest. So that 5.5% is my rate. However, it has a decimal in the problem, but there's a percent there at the end. So that tells me it's not actually in decimal form yet. So I want to take that decimal and I want to move it 2 spaces to the left. So really that 5.5% is 0.055. And then we plug all that into our formula. So the P is 2,000, the rate 0.055, and the time 5 years. And we just multiply all 3 of those numbers together. And that gives you your interest earned. So the interest earned was $550. If a question ever asks you what was the total balance at the end of those years, so we found our interest, but if you get a question asking you what was the end balance or what was the total amount of money that you owe or something like that, total balance, then we would take the interest we earned and add it back to the number that we started with. So I should probably write that separate or opposite. So we start with the amount that we began with, in this case a deposit, and I'm going to add the interest that was earned. And that would give me the total amount, total balance. So number 1, savings account, deposit is $800, so that's the principal. The rate, 6%, but I want to go ahead and turn that into a decimal, and so that would be 0.06, and the time in years is 2. So using my formula, I equals PRT, plug it all in, 800 times 0.06 times 2, and we get 96. So that's how much interest I have to pay. For number 2, auto loan, I borrowed $5,000, so that's my starting amount. My rate in decimal form is 0.12, and my time in years. So I equals PRT. I'm going to write my formula down, and I'm going to plug in my numbers and see what I get. And I should get 1,800. So you're going to have to pay 1,800 on top of the 5,000 for that auto loan. On number 3, Sam deposited $500 in a savings account that paid 8% simple interest. He made no deposits or withdrawals for 5 years. So how much interest did Sam earn in 5 years? So we're going to use that formula, I equals PRT. The P was my 500. The rate in decimal form, 0.08, and my time in years. So I get 200. So that's how much interest. Now part B says how much money was in Sam's account at the end of 5 years. So total, how much is in the account? So I'm going to take the number she started with, the principal amount, and I'm going to add that interest that she earned on. So she started with $500 and she's earned $200 in interest. So that means now after 5 years she's got $700 in her account total. Number 4, Debbie invested $7,000 in a certificate of deposit, depositing money that paid 8.2% simple interest. She held the CD for 6 years. So how much did Debbie earn each year? So each year, that means 1 year. So when I set up my equation, I equals PRT, for each year for 1 year, that's what I'm going to do for A. I want to figure out just in 1 year, how much does she earn? So 7,000 times 0.082 times 1. I'm going to get 574. And then same thing down here, except for we're going to fill it in just like you normally would. So how much did she earn in the 6 years? So times 0.082 times 6. And you should have 3,444. Then last one, number 5, Tammy invested $6,000 in a money market fund that paid 5.4% simple interest, or 0.054. What was the value of her account at the end of 18 months? So what was the value of her account? So total, not just the interest. So 18 months is going to be my time, but remember I have to have my time in years. So you can either think 18 months, that's a year and a half, that's 1.5, or in your calculator, you can put the months that they gave you, 18, and divide it by 12, which would be 1.5. So for time, we're going to use 1.5 instead of 18 because it's not 18 years, it's a year and a half. So I equals PRT. So 6,000 for my principal amount times the rate in decimal form, 0.054, times 1.5. And that's going to be 486. But the question was, what was the value of her account? So that means altogether, not just what was the interest, what was the value of her account. So the principal she started with, the principal amount, 6,000 plus that interest that she just earned. So the value of her account altogether should be 6,486.